As you know, here in California, Gloria La Riva and Dennis Barnes are on the ballot for president and vice president. So this time, there are actual revolutionaries that we can vote for. Many of you know Gloria La Riva or have heard of her, but I want to introduce her anyway. While George Bush Sr. was bombing Iraq in 1991, Gloria was one of the main organizers of the massive protests against the war. Her award won a million genocidal sanctions, raised enough money to send millions of dollars of medicines to Iraq during the genocide blockade. While Bill Clinton was bombing Yugoslavia, Gloria spent 10 days in Yugoslavia during the US NATO bombing with Ramsey Clark, protecting and documenting the effects of the US criminal war. While Bush and Clinton were tightening the blockade against Cuba, she was organizing massive shipments of medicine to Cuba and was a key organizer against the pastors for peace caravans to Cuba. She went immediately after the police murder of Michael Brown in Ferguson, where she participated in marches, including one that was brutally attacked by the police. In fact, she was shot with a rubber bullet, while other comrades with her were arrested and brutalized also. There is much more to say. She's everywhere, involved in every struggle. You can think of Gloria joined Dennis Barnes in late August at Standing Rock to show solidarity and support. Please join me in welcoming Gloria La Riva.
Hi everybody, great to see you all here. And I want to thank Alice Walker for being here, who I consider a friend and also a dear friend of Dennis's. And we're really glad to It's very special to us. Sisters and brothers, watching the debate Monday night for many of us was a necessary exercise in punishment. And not for many of you. But as activists who have to watch the debates to decipher what the next potential president is saying. After all, it was seen by some 100 million people worldwide, not out of admiration, but fear and trepidation. Because the people in the world see the US elections as, possibly affecting their lives directly. Needless to say, it was painful, but I want to talk about a couple points. That night, Trump started out by evoking the legacy of Reagan, and he outright said that he would cut corporate taxes. He claimed that cutting corporate taxes will create jobs, and he even mentioned Reagan, who has been rehabilitated now after the suffering he caused so many years ago. Do you remember Reaganomics? The capitalists got their man in the 1980s. What was Reaganism? It was, first of all, the elimination of 80% of all housing subsidies for people who qualified as poor and requiring assistance. I know I grew up on housing subsidies with my mother and our family. In his first budget and the elimination of this housing, homelessness exploded nationwide and is now a permanent phenomenon. In fact, it seems as an intractable and unsolvable problem because it's growing and growing. Before 1981, before Reagan, the word homelessness did not even exist. I don't know if people realize that. There was no word like that. In fact, in 1983, the New York Times, after 2 years of homelessness, the New York Times reported that they would no longer use the words vagrant or hobo, which is what a lot of people use in those days. And they said instead, we will use the term homeless. It skyrocketed in the 80s as Other programs were slashed. The social net was gutted. And what's the answer of politicians today? Well, just a few days ago, the Board of Supervisors agreed that if you call a certain number in the city and complain about someone living in a tent, they will come and remove that tent and that person immediately, within 24 hours. And they said, even the progressives said, everyone who is living in the street will be removed. Now that doesn't mean they're giving you housing. You're just going to be made invisible to the gentrifiers and to the image that the city wants to portray for the rich. So when Trump emphatically argued Monday for tax breaks for corporations, he was introducing in shorthand the new tax reform, so-called reform proposal of the House called A Better Way. It was introduced in March. And there's going to be a battle in the next months or year. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities has just analyzed that proposal for tax cuts, if it passes. And they basically say that it will give the millionaire, billionaire class an average tax cut of $330,000 each, and that their after-tax incomes will rise by 15%. That's in the first year alone. And that the middle fifth of households will receive an average tax cut, not of $330,000, but $260, with an increase in income of 0.1%. And then they say in 2017, the top 1% will receive 71% of the tax cuts, but by the end of these 10 years, 2025, they will receive 97% of the tax cuts. And it will mean 3.7 trillion cut in programs over the next 10 years. Because when you steal from the poor, you give to the rich. That's why we're in the boat we are in today. But this policy didn't end with Reagan. It's really been the policy of every president since Reagan. And I'll just mention one, Bill Clinton. Although Newt Gingrich promoted the idea of getting rid of essential entitlement programs, which is now a dirty word, assistance to low-income people, it was Clinton who said, we will end welfare as we know it. And he signed what was first a contract on America, as we call it, under Gingrich. He made it law. His first attack was on welfare rights, using a negative image, a racist image, mostly of black women, who were the biggest target, of eliminating almost entirely assistance to families of dependent children. That is a lifetime limit of assistance in your lifetime of only 5 years. And of course, the slave-like workfare, if you get assistance. It has proven to be a disaster to families. Remanding also the funds to the states. And so in the South, for example, they decide what to do with that money. And they cut it and cut it and cut it. What Clinton and Trump didn't mention in their debate was the record 2.3 million people behind bars, the imprisoned class. Prisons in the United States are a record 4 times more than existed in 1980. And here in California alone, there were 26,000 inmates in the state of California in 1980, and then it ballooned to 168,000 within 25 years. It's gone down somewhat, but it's because many people have been moved to private prisons or elsewhere. And the cruelty and torture has grown with the prison population. The repressive laws and policies like total isolation for years, sometimes decades. And the families suffer too as well. There's an estimated 10 million children whose parents are in prison. And the statistics show that when a young girl growing up with a father in prison or a parent in prison, that they have a 2% chance of graduating or even going to college versus the general population of 40%. So we don't hear in the campaign of Democrats and Republicans of the suffering in the families. In fact, it's like to them, they deserve the treatment because After black young activists confronted Clinton and it became viral, her video of calling young black men, people of color, super predators, and proposing and supporting Clinton's crime omnibus act of 1994, and the effective death penalty and anti-terrorism law, which eliminated habeas corpus for federal inmates and sped up the death penalty. Well, she has more to do than just say we made a mistake and we didn't know the consequences. That was the intention of those laws. And so if you really made a mistake, reverse it. Well, we say in our campaign, release hundreds of thousands of people who don't belong in prison another day. And when Bill Clinton signed the death penalty law, as I said, habeas corpus was eliminated. Welfare was gutted, and war, since 1991 with the Gulf War, 12 years of brutal, genocidal blockade by the United States causing 1 million deaths in Iraq. That was mostly under Clinton's term. The 1999 bombing of Yugoslavia by Clinton, the tightening of the blockade of Cuba under Clinton and Bush, the war and occupation of Afghanistan, the bombing and destruction of Libya, and now the U.S. financing of terrorists in a war against Syria. It has been endless war, sanctions, blockade, and occupation. And Hillary Clinton, under Bill Clinton, as Secretary of State, as Senator of New York, has voted and advocated without reservation for all these acts of war. We know what a horror Trump is. Today they even reported that USA Today, which never takes a political stance on campaigns, said, don't vote for Trump. But for the poor and workers of the United States, for the people of the world, Clinton does not represent progress. In fact, just the opposite. She pushed the lie of weapons of mass destruction. And I went to Iraq with many people where we challenged the blockade, seeing all the thousands of people dying, the babies who didn't even know what weapons of mass destruction was, that lie. We saw that crime. And Clinton has called for the smashing of the international boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement that is in solidarity with the Palestinian people against Israel. A campaign that has gained so much traction in recent years and has really, really caused great concern in Israel, in the government, and in the United States government. Hundreds of organizations have organized this movement, and she promises to undo it. It's, of course, modeled after the worldwide blockade of South Africa that helped bring down the apartheid system. But in a letter to a billionaire donor, Haim Saban, in June 2015, just last year, Clinton wrote, "We need to make countering BDS a priority. And I'm also very concerned," she said, "by attempts to compare Israel to South African apartheid. Israel is a vibrant democracy." She probably says the same thing about Saudi Arabia. And Saban, who was quoted as saying, "I'm a one-issue guy and my issue is Israel," has reportedly given $5 million to a super PAC supporting Clinton. So even before the next president takes office, the Pentagon's path to war is clearly open. Obama signed just recently the $38 billion package of military aid to Israel, the largest in U.S. history. His administration is now pushing forward, which is going to become reality, the $1 trillion new nuclear weapons program, which the military generals brag will be usable because they said, they claim, you can dial down the damage. That's to try to make it palatable. Palatable. Sisters and brothers, the problem is not the next president, the next individual who will occupy the White House. Of course, there's tactical differences, definitely image differences. There are some differences, but not enough to make a difference in our lives. The problem is not the person, it's the system. The system is pushing for more confrontation, aggression, not just against neighbors countries, but against Russia, China, North Korea. You heard Clinton the other day bashing Russia. Until the people of this country stand up en masse, the forecast is more of the same. After all, isn't that what happened with Obama? There was such a relief and celebration that spontaneously broke out in the country when Bush was over. But it's been since then record deportations, detentions, record numbers of troops, surveillance on every one of us that has grown. And did the police killings end or even slow down? So we are very happy. Dennis Banks, myself, and our other vice presidential candidate, Eugene Perdue, that we're running in this year's race. We have met thousands of people, joining up many to get involved with us, to get ready with all progressive-minded people, with the youth who are in the streets, with the Fight for 15 movement, with Black Lives Matter against all the police killings, with the Dreamers, with the anti-war movement, with the women's movement, LGBTQ movement, the BDS movement, and ours, the socialist struggle. We've been to Gallup, New Mexico, in the heart of the Navajo community. We've been to the universities across the country, to Baton Rouge to protest Alton Sterling. In fact, that's how we got on the ballot in Louisiana, was that I stepped out of the car to film the protests and the massive amount of police there. And I was, of course, attacked by the police with 100 other people, spent 28 hours in jail. But when we got out, some of the families waiting for their kids said, "You're the one running for president?" Because my comrade was outside telling people, "She's a socialist." And when we asked people to sign for us to get on the ballot, they said yes. And we got the signatures we needed that night to get on the ballot in Louisiana. We've been in the Central Valley protesting the theft of water resources by agribusiness, in solidarity with farm workers who are mostly undocumented. We're traversing this whole state, for example. We'll be in San Quentin Prison tomorrow morning, and we welcome you to be there at 10 a.m. with us there at the prison to demand an end to the death penalty. Yes on Prop 62, no on 66. And for the first time in decades, we have a chance now. So if you're not registered to vote, please register to vote. You can do it tonight here in our office. And to end the death penalty and sweep across the country with this progress. We have 5 more weeks to go, and we'll be busy every day with our volunteers in many states to reach out to many more people. We're struggling for every inch and minute of TV and newspaper coverage. In fact, the editorial board of the Chronicle will be interviewing Dennis and I on Tuesday. We'll see what they say. We don't expect an endorsement. But sisters and brothers, we have to prepare for the coming struggle that we are bound to have to be involved in to really change the lives and destinies of the people of the world in the United States and in every other country. To say no to U.S. imperialism and for us to say yes for socialism. It's the only answer to the brutality of capitalism. Thank you so much.